Can I park my food truck anywhere in the UK? Well, in this video from Marketing Food Online, we're going to dive into specifics about where and when you can actually park a food truck in the UK, and you might be a little bit surprised as to what you really need to do it legally. We're going to dive into that here on Marketing Food Online right now. All right, guys, so welcome back to Marketing Food Online. It is Damian Roberti, and if this is your first video in the UK, definitely hit the subscribe button. We've got tons of great videos about food entrepreneurship and food truck ownership. As well, check out our brand new channel, Food Truck Freaks, where we have a dedicated amount of content for the UK. Now, let's dive right into this question because we actually had this question asked on our other channel, which was our Food Truck Freaks channel. We had a gentleman ask if he could park his truck. He was not sure about it as to where and when. So I decided to go ahead and do a video and give you some heads up. So parking a food truck in the UK, of course, it actually involves you understanding a various amount of regulations and obtaining necessary permissions from local authorities. So here is a comprehensive video that I'm going to put together here, giving you a step-by-step as to what you need to know. Let's dive right into it. Number one, understanding local regulations. Now, each local council in the UK has its own set of regulations regarding the operation and parking of food trucks, actually. Now, these regulations are designed specifically to ensure public safety, hygiene, and of course, minimal disruption to the community while you are there selling, which is very similar actually here in the US as well, as far as the parking permits and such goes. Number two, permission and licensing. Now, it's a little different in the UK. So you guys actually have a street trading license, as it's known. Now, to trade on public streets, you generally need a street trading license. This is actually issued by the local council and specifically specifies where and when. That's the most important part too, guys, when you can actually trade. Application process, how does that work? Well, you must apply to the relevant local council within the area you plan to have your business. Now, this often involves actually providing details about your food truck business, the type of food that you will sell, and the trading times. So you need to specify also the time frame that you're looking for. So that brings us to the next thing, which would be fees. Now, there are usually fees associated with obtaining a street trading license. Now, these can actually vary widely depending on the location, but also the type of license for trading with your food truck. That's why it's slightly different. Conditions. Now, there's a few conditions to keep in mind. Councils may actually impose conditions on the license when you get it, such as specific trading hours, hygiene standards, and of course, waste disposal requirements. As it is like here in the US as well, you have to dispose of your waste in a certain process. Now, private property, you might be asking about that. Let's dive into that a little bit. If you plan to park your food truck on private property, such as, let's say, like a supermarket, a car park, or a business premises, you must get permission from that actual property owner. You can't just drop your truck there and start trading. Now, this often involves kind of negotiating a rental, if you will, a rental space agreement and usage agreement. So you want to double check with the owners. You can't just necessarily drop it there and start running your business. Number three, restricted areas. Now, there are no trading zones actually in the UK. Many councils designate certain areas as no trading zones where food trucks are actually not allowed. Now, here's some examples of where that is. High streets and busy pedestrian areas to avoid congestion. They actually limit food trucks. I know it sounds like a good idea because it has a lot of people walking around, but it also can cause congestion and even traffic issues. Near schools and other sensitive areas, they also request that you don't be near those as well. Now, residential areas where trading may cause noise or even disruption during late evenings or mid of the afternoon, they don't allow you to do that as well. But there are event-specific restrictions as well, which are during events such as like fairs or markets or festivals. Councils might impose additional restrictions or require specific event-related permits. Now, that's actually true here in the US as well, because you go to a certain event, you have to have a permit specifically for that event, as well as any council or city's permits and regulations. Number four, health and safety regulations. Now, this also comes into play actually, food hygiene. So your food truck, of course, must comply with hygiene regulations in order to be parked at certain areas, including regular inspections and maintaining high standards for cleanliness, which is kind of a common sense thing. Health and safety, of course, you must ensure that your food truck meets all health, but safety regulations, which would include also fire safety and equipment standards. So keep in mind, whatever you're using on your food truck in the UK when you're doing your trading, you've got to make sure that it falls in line specifically with equipment standards as well. Number five, parking and traffic regulations. Now, here's some parking restrictions to think about. Even with a street trading license, you must comply with the parking regulations. Now, this actually means observing any parking signs, of course, or paying for parking where it's required on top of the trading license, not blocking any roadways or pathways as well, just for safety of vehicles. Now, loading and unloading, yes, you do have that, of course, with a food truck. You may need to consider the logistics of loading and unloading your supplies without causing any traffic disruptions. Now, even if you've got a trading license for a specific area, do ensure that, because it's really critical for you and your employees to be super safe if you're taking food in and out of the vehicle. Number 6, environmental considerations. Of course, waste management. Now, proper waste disposal, of course, is crucial. Councils are often require you to actually have a waste management plan to handle food waste, packaging, and other rubbish. So keep that in mind too. The way you dispose of the waste also has a certain criteria. Now, noise and smell. Now, minimize noise and smell from your food truck to avoid complaints. If you're around residents or potential businesses, that's a little bit of a challenge, I think, when it comes to the smell part of it. But the noise, of course, is something that you can minimize. If you've got a generator, you might want to think of where you're going to put that if it's not attached to your vehicle. Last but not least, of course, in parking as such, number 7, insurance and compliance. Now, public liability insurance. Now, it's essential to protect your business against any claims of third parties. So normally you're going to have insurance before you can even start trading in the UK. That's kind of a must. Next one, if you have employees, you may have employer's liability insurance. That's actually if you employ staff. This is an actual legal requirement if you've got any additional employees. And then lastly, compliance checks. Of course, regularly review and ensure compliance with laws and regulations on a regular basis. Normally 6 months to every year is when you have to renew license. Here in the US, it's like that as well. In the UK, I believe it's annually, so it's every year. So do check up on that. So lastly, you want to follow up on, so here's some steps you want to follow. Number 1, you want to research your local regulations. Of course, let's recap this a little bit. Start by researching the specific requirements of the local council where you intend to park your food truck in the UK. Number 2 is apply it for licenses. Of course, submit the necessary applications for street trading licenses or permits and permissions to park on private property. Number 3, of course, you want to prepare for your inspections. Follow up with that. Ensure your food truck meets all healthy, safety, and hygiene standards. The UK is definitely stringent about that. They want to make sure that people who consume the food are doing it in a healthy way. Number 4, insurance. Of course, you got to get insurance coverage and have that annually or semi-annually renewed. Number 5, environmental plans, develop a waste management or environmental impact plan. So actually you and your employees, because if maybe you don't happen to be on the truck that day, but you've got your employees, everyone's on the same page and they understand what's expected. So wrapping it up, if you want to operate a food truck, of course, in the UK, that requires a little bit of careful planning, of course, adherence to local regulations. So by obtaining the necessary licenses, complying with health and safety standards, and considering environmental impacts, you can successfully navigate and have a great food truck business when you park. So if you have any questions about parking your food truck, or if you have any questions about food trucks in general, definitely check out our other channel called Food Truck Freaks. And that's actually Freeks. Food Truck Freaks is definitely something you want to look at. And I'll see you on our next video.